Leo, in attendance are Kimberly DeLeo, Stephanie Frederick, and Maria Etheridge. And that will be fine. We don't need to introduce ourselves because we've been talking for 10 minutes. So,
Okay.
okay, so quickly, just to review the agenda, I'm going to show a little PowerPoint on the residential infill project, which is going to be affecting our neighborhood beginning August 1st. It's a very interesting project that the city is undertaking. I'll give a little update on the Lower Southeast TGM planning effort. I'll mention some things about TriMet, its goals for the next year. It has a new general manager. The Springwater connector has been completed. I went and rode my bicycle down there yesterday, and it was very nice. There's one major problem, but it's not really major. But anyway, when we get to it, I'll explain. Parks and trees, we had successful bucket distributions. Just a reminder that the property tax levy for parks kicked in July 1st. That's going to be some nice income for our parks, and we will benefit from that all over the city, so including here in Brentwood-Darlington. And then I want to give you an update on the Brentwood-Darlington Community Center, which is turning into a Sherlock Holmes mystery. It's just amazing. And then I'll talk about Flavel Drive, and Maria has some information about Flavel Street too. So anyway, why don't we go to the residential infill project, and we're going to look at a PowerPoint that Maria will run from her end. Okay, so the residential infill project is a rezoning of all of the city of Portland. Everywhere that there was allowed only single family houses, that is gone. You can build a house on a single family house on a lot, or now you can build a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex. You can add ADUs. If you do build a single house, no more McMansions. And that's why this McMansion up here is crossed out. You can't have that anymore. You have to rescale your house to fit into the neighborhood. But we're likely to see fewer single family homes and more duplexes, like the one being pointed to by the blue arrow. You can see that's a double family house. And we'll see, depending on size of lots, we'll see triplexes, fourplexes, and we can see houses with ADUs and duplexes with ADUs. And so we're going to be able to have a lot more housing units on the same amount of land. And it's a very exciting project for Portland, because we are way behind in the amount of housing we need to have for a growing population. Okay, so Maria, why don't you go to the next slide? Maria, are you there? Okay, oh great, okay, all right. So go to configurations, go back. Good, yes. So this just gives an example of some of the configurations, and there are many possibilities. You can have a house with a little accessory dwelling unit behind it, that's in the upper left. You can have a duplex, that's in the center up, triplex down in the bottom left-hand corner. You can have a house with 2 accessory dwelling units, so you can use those for income, or your mother-in-law, or your relatives, your friends, whatever. You can have a duplex and an ADU. You can have a fourplex. There are actually going to be many options. So, and the way it's been, because of the requirement in almost every part of Portland that builders put a single family dwelling on a lot, developers have been taking the extra step of splitting lots and then putting a single family dwelling on each lot. So we've been actually getting kind of the equivalent of the residential infill project already over the last few years. lots of parcel divisions. Okay, so go on to the next one, Maria. So there are going to be some design changes too. So you can see up at 9B, the upper left, the city will now allow eaves to project, which blows my mind because we need them to protect us from the sun in the summer, and yet they weren't allowed. You could only have these little teeny tiny fake eaves, which was crazy. So now that the eave design anyway is kind of a token gesture in the direction of designing for a hot climate future, right? So anyway, that's good. 9A, we're not going to be allowed to have stairs going up to the front door like this because it's too hard on too many people to go up those stairs. On 12B, if you have a duplex like this, you can put both entrances on one street. Often on a corner, you have an entrance on one street and then another entrance around the side. Now you can put them both on one street. I guess this was important to some people. I don't myself see why it matters, but anyway, somebody wanted that. So anyway, then on parking, 11B, if you have an alleyway, you need to access your parking from the alley. Don't park on the street. But the residential infill regulation in general is eliminating minimum parking requirements for residential uses in single dwelling zones, but that means wherever there used to be single families zoning, we had a parking requirement, but now we're eliminating single family zoning, but we're also making it unnecessary to provide on-site parking. So this is going to mean a lot of cars on the street. And I think the idea is to try to get people to stop having cars, basically.
Right.
And then it will, there's some limitations on garage sizes. If there are garages, they have to, and then let's see. It will incorporate changes from another program called Better Housing by Design by prohibiting parking between the front of the building and the street. So I guess you can't park on the lawn. I guess that's what that is saying.
Right.
There will be greater flexibility for ADU design. And then the buildings are not going to be as tall as they've been allowed. We have a couple of monster houses in our street that are like, they're like Mount Everest, you know, that towering over the other houses. That's going to be scaled down. So the buildings now, the building height is going to be measured from the highest point in the land to, I guess, the middle of the roof. And instead of it's going to be measured from the lowest point. I beg your pardon. It used to be measured from the highest. So you could really, so if you were allowed 20 feet in height or 30, then you could, get it higher by measuring from the highest point in the yard. But now you have to measure from the lowest point to keep the houses small. Okay, so go on to the next one, Maria, please. All right, so then another requirement, if there are, okay, hold on a second. Oh, here I go, excuse me. If there are 3 or more units on a parcel, including ADUs, one building must be visitable. And this is this jargon word, meaning that it has to be designed to accommodate wheelchairs, walkers, people with disabilities, old people, and so on. So you need wide doors, flat entrances, no stairs. a bathroom and a small living area accessible to the main entrance. And again, as I said, wide doors in the bathrooms, everywhere in the house, so that someone in a wheelchair can get around. But so for some strange reason, it comes out of the ADA law, but it's called visitability, which is hard to pronounce and weird. You can visit this house if you have a wheelchair, but you can also live in the house if you have a wheelchair.
Right.
So anyway, but that's nice. I think that's great that's going to be required. Okay, so Maria, the next slide, please. Thank you very much. Okay, so the city has published a variety of communication devices, and they have online a handy at-a-glance guide to the residential infill project. So it shows where there are overlay zones. There are certain zones where you can't build multiple units, as we've just described. And you see number 1 right in the center. If it's an area that can be flooded, if there are landslides, or if there are important streams or forests or some kind of natural resources, then your ability to build stuff is going to be limited or denied, excluded. The West Hills, has a lot of loose hillsides and in earthquakes, it's very dangerous over there. So that it's not a good place for building yet more and more units. But anyway, this handy guide is Maria will post these various links in the chat, and the guide is referenced in one of them. One of the other interesting things is that if you want to add more units, let's see if I've got this right. If you want to have more than a house on the street, a house on a lot, you have to be on a maintained street. That is, our gravel roads. You can't build 4 units on a lot that's in the middle of that's in a portion of a gravel road that's very separated from maintained streets. So they want you to be near a street that's paved and has what do you call it, the grids, the stormwater grids and so on. So that may limit development here in Brentwood-Darlington, because we have so many unpaved streets. But that'll be interesting to see.
Well, what's interesting, we have 1 lot behind us. They it went from 1 house to 8 of these 2 stories. But I noticed on a couple of those gravel roads, they actually paved the road.
Oh, I see. Oh,
So
okay.
I think that's what they're doing.
That's interesting. And they didn't really have to, though, because these new regulations don't apply until August 1st. So
Right.
Is that one of those big developments is by the park there?
One of them is, yes. And let me turn my camera on and turn it around, and I can show you. Let me see if I can do that. I don't know if you can see the houses.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know which one that one is.
So this used to be 1 lot, and I mean, it had beautiful trees, and anyway, but we put up curtains. But I mean, is what it is.
Yeah, there is a big overlook there. Used to have beautiful trees, but isn't that the one that advertised itself as sort of an ecologically responsible company that's building that? There's a little 7 or 8 units with a little with some parking in front and a walkway down the center or something.
Yes.
Yeah. So they killed trees and put up these buildings. Yeah. Okay.
Right. And what they did too was on the inside, they have 1-story units, and they put the 2 stories on the outside by the neighboring houses, which wasn't ideal. But, of course, I've learned a lot since, joining these groups, and, By the
Uh-huh.
time you get the flyer in the mail, it's too late. So,
Totally. It's
you
totally
know,
too late. I mean, I see as I go through the permits every month that are being applied for
mhm,
and issued, I can see things that got started, 2 years ago. And
mhm,
so when we finally see evidence of them, it's way too late, as you say.
mhm.
Yeah. So I'm not sure after all that is the ecologically friendly place.
I thought Jeff, my partner, was telling me that there was something about they promoted it as like community living. I'll have to go look or
I
ask.
see.
I'll
Okay,
find
yeah,
out.
I'll have to go back over there and look around
Yeah.
again. Thank you for the tour.
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay, so Maria, can you go to the next slide? Okay, this is just the second page of this handy at a glance guide to RIP, and it explains something called the floor area ratio, which is the ratio of floor area to the total size of your lot. And so they have some regulations that lay this all out. It's a way of keeping the houses on a smaller scale, with no more McMansions. But I'm not going to go into it. I don't really understand it yet. And but I just wanted you to know about this guide, because if you want to get just a quick refresher over what the RIP is, you can access it on at the URL that's one of the ones that's posted on the chat. Okay, so go to the final slide, Maria. Thank you. Okay, so this is kind of a guessing game. And number one, flag of the United States. Portland is the first city in the United States to abolish single-family zoning. And this is a big deal on the racial justice front, because cities all across the United States adopted single-family zoning expressly to keep Black people out of their worlds. And so Portland has said, we're done with that. And I'm very proud of the city for adopting that, and other cities and towns are going to lead the way. I mean, are going to follow our lead. So good for us. Number two, though, I've heard people running around saying, oh, single family houses are forbidden. We're just going to be flooded with apartment houses and we're doomed. No, you can build one house on a lot if you want to. It just can't be a McMansion. Then a third thing is number three, change is going to occur over time. I have also heard people saying, oh my gosh, this next week is in August, the building is going to start, by the end of August, we're going to see all of these units and it's going to be so crowded. And no, this is change that occurs over time as people sell their properties. The permitting process is gone through. It'll be here and over there. It's just like now. The pace shouldn't be any different than what we have now. Number four, one of the things that we've been missing in Portland is so-called middle housing. We have had tons of single family housing, and then we have lots of apartment housing, but we haven't had this middle housing, which is the duplexes, and we have some, but the triplexes, the fourplexes, the courtyard apartments, and so on. Those are very scarce, but we're going to see a lot more of them, this so-called middle housing with the residential infill project. And number five is, even though the residential infill project is going to lead more housing, that's not going to happen quickly enough to compensate for our severe housing shortage, which is effectively driving up land prices to where we're driving people out of Portland. And the people we're driving away are people who I feel help us sustain the life that we need to live here. They're the nurses and delivery people, school teachers, firemen. I mean, we can't have them, we can't drive them out and have them commuting from way out of town. That's not right. So we need, there are many people in the city now and around and through the neighborhoods who are aware that we need to get some strong anti-displacement measures in place so that we do not drive people out of the city. So the TGM planning effort is going to be working on. That will be one of the aspects that it will be working on. All right, so that is the residential infill project in a nutshell. And again, if you want to copy the chat, there are URLs there that lead you to city documents that can give you a lot more detail, or can give you the handy guide, whatever you need. So do you have any questions that I probably can't answer, but I will solicit them anyway?
I do actually. I do. You know, I think I'm kind of starting to understand a little bit the little steps of things that are allowed and not allowed, and things that are changing. Like what can you and can you not do on a lot. I still struggle a little bit to put it in, like, what does this mean? And I think we all probably do, because as you said, right, we don't know which way this is going to go. But I do remember this document of the city of Portland about the displacement risks, and they did an analysis of different neighborhoods in Portland and how RIP is going to most likely affect those neighborhoods. And I do remember that Brentwood-Darlington was like the hotspot for, at most, you know, at risk for a displacement because of RIP. So I guess I am trying to understand, will these new zoning regulations and all that, will that act as an accelerator for gentrification in our neighborhood? Or is gentrification happening regardless because of a housing shortage? And I'm just, you know, in a bigger picture, still trying to grasp, what does this mean for particularly Brentwood-Darlington?
Well, so gentrification is happening at a rapid pace anyway.
Right.
And I have, just in the short time I've lived here, 4 years, I have seen radical change, and just dozens, maybe hundreds of examples of new construction around our entire neighborhood. So it's already undergoing tremendous gentrification. And the land prices are just zooming. I got an email today saying that my house is now $107,000 higher. I mean, I could put it on the market for that and get that $107,000 more than what I paid for it just 4 years ago, which is mind-boggling to me. So,
but RIP had I mean, they were trying to do affordable housing, right? The whole idea behind it is to create more housing, correct? And yet they're saying at the same time that one of the least served neighborhoods, like Brentwood-Darlington of Portland proper, is going to be put at risk the most by this very same concept.
Yeah, frankly, I don't really understand, because it seems contradictory. But one of the statements that they make in the report is, overall, the residential infill project is likely to reduce displacement of low-income renters in single-family homes across Portland. This reduction is the result of allowing more units to be built on one lot, which means there will be fewer lots redeveloped overall across Portland, but more buildings. But then, and they say the middle ring neighborhoods, including Brentwood-Darlington, will see significant increases in new units, but lower rates of redevelopment. So I'm not sure that I grasp that.
Right.
But maybe it just means that because developers won't have to split lots, or I don't know, they can build a lot more units on a single lot than they used to be able to. So we might see lower rates of single family houses being built. You know, I don't really understand this statement. I feel like a fool for not understanding it. I was going over and over it last night, and I thought I understood it, but now that I'm talking with you, I don't understand it anymore. It doesn't make sense to me. I think that although we will see lots of new units, we also have such a high demand for housing going on here that I think we're just going to continue to see what we're seeing now, which is land values skyrocketing and people being shoved out. That's my prediction.
I wondered the same thing, you know, where's the affordable housing? Because these houses that they're building, at least the ones that I've seen are, you know, it's what, 600,000 or something
Yeah.
like that.
Right,
Yeah.
and these houses are, the residential infill project is not focused on affordable housing. It's just
Okay.
to
Oh, is it
focus
not? I
on-
thought that was kind of their goal, no? I thought that was kind of part of it. No,
I don't.
maybe
think
not.
so. I
What
think-
is
I think
what
it
is their
was-
goal? Just
I think it's
to
to build, as we have a severe housing shortage in Portland. In fact, in Oregon is the most, it has the greatest housing shortage relative to population of any state in the union. We're the
Wow.
worst. And so we are
Wow.
hundreds of thousands of units behind here in Portland because we haven't, partly because we've had this single family zoning. So a great deal of building can't occur in the form of multifamily units, like apartment buildings and fourplexes and that sort of thing. So we're way behind. The US population is growing and growing and growing, both for natural increase and from immigration. And the cities across the United States are not keeping up with it. And Portland, Oregon is the worst. So
Yeah.
the residential info project is an attempt to get more housing units into existence, but not necessarily affordable units. That's
Okay.
a problem entirely, and I don't think we're meeting it very well. It's interesting in the city of Fresno, where I lived 4 years before coming here. The city is taking the federal money and it is buying up one motel after another and putting families in that are getting evicted. The
Interesting.
Fresno housing prices are rising also, but they're keeping people off the streets, families with children, by putting them into motels so that it's easy, it's less expensive to revamp a motel and turn the units into little apartment units than it is to buy land and then build from scratch affordable housing. And so I am hoping that in that we start doing that in Portland. We've got lots of motels on 82nd Avenue that I feel we can buy up and make available through using federal money and whatever else is available. I'm not schooled in affordable housing, but we could emulate Fresno and other cities that are doing that and help people who are getting evicted and help them stay in the city. And but my understanding of the residential info project is that it is not aimed at affordable housing, just
Okay.
more housing. So if you have more and more and more units, then that should slow the rate of land value rise and therefore slow displacement. I think that's what they're hoping, but I don't believe that. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we can build our way out of displacement. And we can't.
Yeah, I got a feeling that there's going to be some kind of consequences to those changes that we're not aware of and that we didn't probably foresee or intend. You know how that sometimes is when you're doing something for the first time and nobody else has done it yet. So it's going to be interesting for sure. See what follows after.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. And as I said, we've sort of had the same effect going on with all this lot splitting, and then developers putting up 3 or 4 houses where there was one. So we're already seeing sort of the equivalent all over Brentwood-Darlington. But yeah, we're in for radical change over the next, say, I don't know, within 5 years, we probably won't recognize our neighborhood. It won't look like the way it is now. Okay, so, all right, you can close the PowerPoint. That's just a quick intro to the residential infill project. And we can go back to
Fine.
the agenda.
Oh, you want to go back to the agenda? Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Maria, for juggling all this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, me do I.
Okay, so just a quick update on the Lower Southeast Rising planning effort, which I like to call the TGM because Lower Southeast Rising is a pretentious, awful name. They are way behind, unfortunately, but they are still working on finalizing their plan for how they're going to reach out to the community to get people's views and fears and desires and whatnot about the neighborhoods that are encompassed by the planning effort. That's Woodstock, Brentwood-Darlington, Mount Scott, Arleta, part of Lentz, the west part of Lentz, and then Foster Road of the Foster Powell neighborhood. So, we're probably the pandemic caused a shortfall in a plunge in city revenues. And so to rescue the planning effort, staff canceled the contractor that would have been overseeing much or carrying out much of the work. And they're trying to get it done themselves and without relinquishing the other projects that they are already assigned to. So we're really grateful to them for a heroic effort, actually, but it means that they're behind. They're behind now. They should be. We should have already been launching into our outreach instead of just still planning it. But at least they have now their advisory committee in place, and it's got some brilliant people in it who will have a lot to offer. The project managers and staff who work on this. So I think eventually this is going to be a good outcome. We're just a little behind right now. Then to go on to transportation, TriMet just adopted a new budget and is very dedicated to bringing its ridership back because it's almost nothing right now. It just plunged, I don't know, 70% or something because of COVID. So they want to bring their riders back. They want to revamp their safety and security so that people are safe and equity issues are addressed. And that was a complicated issue, or one aspect was where many white people were decrying the presence of transit police on trains and buses and platforms and so on. And so TriMet was getting ready to abandon the presence of those police when somebody in TriMet said, "Don't you think we should do a survey?" As they just surveyed people, low-income people who take the bus, people of color, immigrants, whatever, and they found that these people, far from wanting the police to leave, they were more afraid of their fellow passengers than they were of any of the police. And so they want the police there. So those crying for the transit police to go away hadn't apparently consulted the people on whose behalf they thought they were advocating. So that's been a very interesting development that TriMet had to kind of pull back on getting rid of its police and say, okay, wait, this is much more complicated than we thought. And so I was very happy to see that. We need, data is good. Data is always really good. And one more thing about TriMet, TriMet just hired a new general manager. His name is Samuel Dessous. He's been the interim manager since the last manager, general manager left back in March. And he's been also the chief operating officer. He's been that for quite a while. He's been in charge of day-to-day administration and operations. So he has tremendous experience with TriMet, and he's a Black man the first Black general manager that TriMet's ever had. So this is wonderful. They've gotten somebody who's very good, and he's Black, and it's just something to celebrate. And he's apparently very competent, so he's not going to fail in his job, and has so many years of TriMet, he knows it inside and out. So I'm really excited about this, and I think it's wonderful. So I've begun riding TriMet again, and I'm very happy to be back on the bus and the train and so on. Although recently I was coming back from, well, never mind. I won't go into it because we have a few more things to go over. I rode my bike down to see the Springwater connector, which connects Flavel Street with the Springwater corridor, and goes through Flavel Park and then down a street that used to be like the Grand Canyon as far as the potholes, and it was terrible. Now it's paved, it's really nice. You can just ride on down, and the sidewalk and trees growing, and they've done a nice job. The only thing is, if you're approaching the, if you're riding your bike down Flavel and heading east, when you get to this connector, there's a 90-degree turn you have to make to get onto it. And you can't do that on your bicycle. You just, we don't fold like that. And so I felt that was a design flaw. But so if you go out into the traffic, and then you can kind of make a circle enough that can get you onto the path. So I was disappointed in that, but nevertheless, it's if you're careful and see that there are no cars coming, it's fine. And it's really nice to have this connector down to the Springwater corridor. So that's done. So go check it out if you can, if you have time. And then to go on to parks and trees, we had 2 very successful bucket distributions, and this is for watering trees. The idea is to water our trees in our now hot, dry summers, and it just raised people's consciousness that yes, changing climate is here. It's changed. It's already here, and we need to care for our trees because they can't do well. They're not acclimated to what we're facing now. And but anyway, we gave away 150 buckets, and it really took off like wildfire. I mean, there were so many demands, and word was spreading, and people were calling and emailing, and can I have a bucket? And it was very exciting. So we're going to be doing this next year. It was a huge success. We did it at the Brentwood-Darlington Community Center right on the street on 62nd. And lots of people went by, and it was really perfect.
And it was nice to see everyone. I'm glad I made it down.
Oh, yes, that's right. You were there. Yeah, it was nice to see everybody. Thank you for coming there. And just a reminder, the property tax that we'll have for 5 years, the parks levy, kicked in July 1st. That it's going to be a lot of income from parks, and that's going to be helpful for us. We'll have better maintenance, maybe more trees, whatever. I'm happy to see parks be funded again. The community centers will be open again, and the camps and the various kinds of programming will be in full force again. So that's wonderful. And they'll have 5 years in which to figure out a long-term solution to park and rec funding. Probably they'll establish a district like the school district, and then there will be some permanent property tax levy applied. So but we'll have to see what they come up with. In the meantime, this is good. The Portland voters said absolutely tax us, and we should all be very grateful to everyone who's voted for that. It's a good thing. And so now for the Brentwood-Darlington Community Center, we have drafted a little agreement between the BDNA and Impact Northwest. Impact operates the building, and we have lots of privileges. We have a key. We can reserve space and use it without paying a fee. We have a little storage space there. If we're on site, we can use the electricity and the water and the kitchen and everything. And so we have some nice privileges. Impact is a sub-lessee with the Portland Public Schools. It's very complicated. Portland Public Schools owns the property on which the building stands. And Multnomah County contracted with Portland Public Schools to lease that property until 2034. And the lease agreement says that it's to be run as a community center. The Multnomah County and the precursor or the nonprofit organization that formed to build the building arranged to sublet the building to Impact Northwest. And so then now the county is the official, I guess, lessee, and the sub lessee is Impact Northwest. Impact has, but there is now some bewilderment about who owns the building. The county says it doesn't own the building. The two documents we have seem to imply that Portland Schools owns the building if the terms of the lease are violated, or it owns the building because it automatically owns any improvement on the building, on the property. But it's very unclear, and some of the language gives and some of the language takes away, and it's bizarre. So we don't really know who owns the building. We know who owns the land. It's a school district. In any case, it's now becoming, there's now the possibility that actually, as Brentwood-Darlington Neighborhood Association might own the building, which would be mind-boggling.
Wow.
I know.
They're trying to get the documents that everything's been lost that concerns exactly what we need to know about who owns what and is responsible for what and who is really the lessee and the sub-lessee and all that. It's all become somewhat unclear now. So we have requests out to Portland Public Schools and to the Secretary of State. Portland Public Schools, you want to know, do you own this building? And if so, show us the documentation that shows that you own the building. We have also reached out to the Secretary of State saying, we need to know what happened to this original nonprofit that was formed to construct the building, because the neighborhood association was part of that and may be the remnant, a legal remnant that has a real interest in the building. But we haven't sorted it out yet. I personally feel that it's doubtful that we can claim ownership, but it's not out of the picture. So,
Wow.
Okay,
This is so interesting, and I am confident that you are going to figure it out.
oh my God, I hope so. But it has become more and more complicated the more I look into it, and the fact that so all our documentation is gone. All our minutes, everything, records before 2005 are gone.
Oh my God. As long as the BDNA doesn't owe property taxes for the last 15 years or something.
Right.
We probably don't, just because it's public,
Right.
public property. And the
I
rent
hope
is
so.
$1. The rent is $1 a year.
Good.
So we don't know if we own the building, we don't know back rent. And as far as taxes, I don't think there would be taxes. For example, I don't think the school district pays taxes on the property, and so I don't think we have to pay taxes on the building that's on the property. But I don't know. I'm not an attorney who's skilled, trained. I'm not an attorney, one, and I'm not trained at all in real estate matters and tax matters. So this is all very bewildering to me. But anyway, I'm trying to find out, and I will keep you informed. In the meantime, we're trying to work closely with Impact Northwest, and it's we're getting to know some of the people there, and they're very pleasant, and we're thinking about having just a little interim agreement that lays out our privileges, just to have it in writing, and then an understanding of how we can partner with Northwest Impact in ways that help it raise money to rehab the building.
Yeah.
And because they haven't, you know, that's a nonprofit that offers services, to wonderful services, and I'll go over them in just a second, to people in need across the city, and to many people in our own neighborhood. It depends on donors, and I'm not sure that they've ever asked their donors for money to operate the building as a community center. So they've called on us to do a lot of programming and activities and so on that are sort of community center like, and they've rented space to various little groups, Cub Scouts and fathers discussion groups and somebody's pinochle card club and that kind of thing. But it hasn't really been a thriving beehive of a community center the way some are, like Woodstock. So I think they want, the new executive director wants to see it like that, but they can't just throw donor money at it. If the donors put in the money for the parenting education or the homelessness averting programs and so on. So we have to figure out the funding now, but it is true that Impact has neglected the maintenance of the building over the years in violation of the lease. So that's real clear. But on the other hand, if we're the owners, then maybe we were responsible. I don't know. No, it seems like the sublessee is responsible. So that is Impact. Anyway, we're going to try to have a very cooperative working relationship. And if we can build up some of our activities or arrange with Parks and Rec to bring some programming to the community center, then that can be used in fundraising. It can, you know, it can be pointed to by Impact saying, you know, look at how we use our building, and so we need money for the new roof and paint job and rehab the kitchen and so on. So we're going to try to work closely with them. And now Chelsea is going to be joining the conversations that I've been having with, or that I'm having with Andy Nelson, the executive director. And I'm really grateful to not be alone in this anymore, because it's happened very fast. And I don't know, I just know the history. I don't know what our relationship has been with Impact. And so it's all been feeling my way forward, you know, in the dark. So fortunately now I'm going to have somebody, a tough lady to work with me. So, and just a real fast, I know it's at 8 o'clock now, but I just wanted to go over what Impact Northwest does. First of all, they have several centers around town. It's not just us. And their most prominent focus right now is averting homelessness. So they really, this last year, they raised a lot of money despite the pandemic. They were able to raise over $1 million to put into their services, including averting homelessness. So for us here in Brentwood-Darlington, that's critical, because we're seeing land values, land prices, you know, skyrocket, and people are being pushed out of their rentals and so on. So I feel that Impact Northwest is really important to our neighborhood in with that programming. But it also offers youth and family services. And one of the things it includes is parenting education, and that's based in our building. And our building, in fact, was designed for their program because the Brentwood-Darlington neighborhood back in the 90s wanted exactly this program that has now been carried out for 20 years. So Impact has staff that goes to people's homes and visits them and plays with their tiny children and helps parents understand child development and how to, you know, do things to spark their interest in reading and playing, and how to care for them, and best nutrition and so on. Sometimes the parents bring their children to our building And their supervised play again, that with a focus on teaching parents, how kids grow. So I think that's super valuable for our neighborhood too. And the staff goes out to homes within Brentwood-Darlington, probably a little beyond those boundaries too, but it's very beneficial to our neighborhood. And I had no idea. I didn't know until recently that they did that. But they also have other youth and family services. I saw that they have science camp for young kids. I was over there one day and the kids went off on a little hike, I think over to the learning gardens, and then they came back and or they might have gone over to Malcolm's, the Black Futures Farm. I learned that Malcolm works for Impact Northwest 4 days a week, and then on day 5 he farms, and that was really interesting. The Impact Northwest also offers all kinds of services for seniors, and it helps them connect with this organization called Ride Connect for rides to medical appointments or whatever they need. Also has a program of Slavic community services. So I know I dropped in one day and there are a bunch of women there speaking Ukrainian, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Right.
And tomorrow, Impact is hosting a COVID vaccination clinic for kids at the BDCC, which I think is lovely. And Chelsea helped to advertise that. So
that's great.
Part of our working relationship with them, our new relationship. We used to be very standoffish, very cold. We never asked about them. We never saw them. All we heard was we didn't like the building manager. But he's in a very tough position. I'm starting to feel very partial to him. And but now we're starting to demystify Impact Northwest. And I don't know what this culture was that for the 4 years I've been here, we never spoke about Impact Northwest. We didn't know who they were or what they did or why they were in the building or why we were in the building with them. Nothing. And it was so weird. And no one ever asked, and I didn't either. So very strange, but that's all vanishing. Okay, and then just something really fast. We got information recently, and I'm switching completely now to streets. Flavel Drive, which has been experiencing high volume traffic at high speeds and trucks and so on, partly because Google sends people up there. It's off of Johnson Creek Boulevard, which doesn't do us any favors. And so we started, there were people there who had set up a relationship with one of the planners, Scott Cohen. And so she's led the charge on Flavel Drive. Her name is Kristen Parker. And so she appealed to us for help. And so we helped gather speed data with our radar speed gun, and published it in our little land use newsletter and wrote to Scott and just kept the pressure on. And so PBOT finally went out and measured traffic volumes and speeds, and they said, you're right, too many cars and they're going too fast. And they put us on the list to get speed bumps. And I got a text yesterday from Kristen Parker saying, oh, they've already marked the streets where the street where those speed bumps are going to go.
I saw that.
This is so exciting, and I really appreciate the residents on that street who joined in the advocacy, and we were able to help them to some extent with communications with the city and gathering data and so on. That's a real success story, and I expect there to be a lot of unhappy drivers on that street, and I just can't wait for their unhappiness.
Yeah, it's been crazy. So, something needs to be done. And unfortunately, it's like speed bumps are the only thing because people just aren't, following the rules.
No,
It's frustrating.
So have you seen any improvement on Duke Street there? Because
not really. I mean, maybe a tiny bit just because people are maybe not coming down Duke anymore because of the speed bumps, but it's still pretty crazy over here.
I have to go ride my bike down Duke to just see where these speed bumps are. I have the impression there aren't really a lot of them.
No, they're between like 72nd and 82nd by the school, which is good because, eventually the kids will be back in school full time. And
Oh, but they're
You know,
not down by you.
No,
where the
no,
speed
they're not
limit
between
is.
52nd and 72nd.
I see. Oh, okay. Thank you
Oh.
for telling me.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, maybe we can start.
We'll conquer that one day.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll have to turn our focus to that once Flavel Drive, now that Flavel Drive is going to get some treatment from PBOT. And now Maria was telling me before you joined us that Flavel Street is getting some speed bumps.
Oh,
That's yeah. I just I don't have like an official source or anything. I just saw that Ryan posted that on Facebook in our Facebook group. He seems to be very much well informed on stuff like that. So I don't know where he gets his information from, but I was surprised too. Yeah, apparently Flavel Drive and Flavel Street, and that's
Nice.
just hearsay for now. I haven't seen
Mhm.
anything from PBOT.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
I'll check it out and see, or we can all check it out. And
yeah.
I did
And,
see the white markings down on the street.
On
Down
Flavel
by-
Street.
I think so. The one that's right in
Oh.
front of Hazeltine.
Oh,
no,
that's
that's
Drive.
Flavel Drive.
Okay, so that's where I saw the markings.
Yeah,
Right.
that is really exciting. I'm really happy that we're
On
going to.
Duke, I saw the other day somebody driving. I thought, man, they must be really drunk or something. They were going left and right and left and right, but they were skipping to miss, the
speed bumps.
Yeah, so they would go into the bike lane, do not
Right.
have to deal with a speed bump. And I
Right.
thought like, oh, that's not how it's supposed to work. So they
Right.
No, right.
into the bike
Right.
lane, back out, into the bike
Oh,
lane,
really?
back out. And I'm like, yeah, that's great.
Oh, there's just some of those drivers are so hateful.
I know they just always find a way to still make it somehow bad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm sure they have to do that, for the emergency response people.
Yeah, I
but-
think that's the reasoning behind
Right.
it. But people are just, if that causes for,
Yeah, right.
I don't know, if
Right.
that puts drivers that they think they need to like swift into the bike lane now every 100 yards or whatever, that's really
Yeah,
not.
well, no, that's no good.
Yeah.
No, that's
Well.
very dangerous. Anyway.
Hopefully wash this one off. I mean, that's got to be tiring too.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people doing that.
Oh, really?
Mhm. And I mean, I get it if there's no cars coming your way and you're doing the speed limit, but
Yeah, it's still a
still shouldn't be
bike lane. You
doing
should
it.
really, I hate
Right.
that the bike lanes are so
oh no, you
close
should
to
never
the-
go on the bike lane. But what
Yeah,
I
that's
see
where
them
he was
doing-
going. He was going into the bike lane every
Oh,
time
that's
to miss the
crazy.
speed bump.
Yeah, that's not okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. Because what I've seen them do is kind of straddle that divider line, the center line,
Oh, to go to the other side. Yeah, no, this dude
right
was
when
doing it
there's
the
no
other way.
cars coming.
Gotcha.
which,
Yeah.
I kind of get that maybe, but I don't know. Yeah, it's not helpful.
Right.
Okay, well, we just do what we can. We've been getting quite a bit of attention from PBOT. I'm grateful for that because
Mhm.
for many decades, it seems quite 3 decades, 30 years or something since annexation. We haven't gotten a whole lot, but now we're getting a lot more. So and once we have the TGM plan in place, there'll be more city funds funneled into our area. So it's just a big deal to get that TGM grant. I'm so excited about that. So,
I'm really excited about the 82nd Street as well. That's
oh yes, isn't that
Wow.
marvelous? Yeah.
About what? Second Street?
Well,
82nd.
Oh, 82nd. Yes. Yeah, totally.
yeah, that is going to get some nice treatment and then come under city purview, and it's going to start being a real street.
Nice.
And that's another reason why I feel I wish we could buy up some of these horrible motels that are right now, prostitution hotels and
Oh gosh.
drug hotels and so on, drug motels, and put, we have a nice new street, and then we can refurbish the motels and put desperate families in them. And I just feel that we could have a whole new lease on life on 82nd Avenue.
Mm.
So, okay, well, let's call a halt to the meeting. Are there any concerns or interests or other information that either of you would like to bring up?
No, thank you very much
Nope.
for all of the helpful links earlier too, and explaining the landfill or infill project. That was helpful.
Oh, okay. Well, you're very welcome. Yes, you can copy the chat. I guess I saved the chat and then copied out and put it into a document so I can get the URLs. So thank you, Maria, for running the PowerPoint and the agenda and the posting stuff in the chat. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate your help tremendously.
Not a problem.
Okay, good. All right.
All right, I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay, very fine. Well, it was very nice to talk with both of you. It's